Hi, my name is Dr. Brian Mailing, and I'm going to be answering your questions today from Reddit about stem cells and regenerative medicine. So I got a bunch of interesting questions here, and I'll try to get to all of them. Stem cell therapy for eczema. So eczema is a autoimmune disease, and it is typically manifested on the skin. Okay, I'm sure we all have friends or people we know with eczema. So it can be really problematic to treat. Sometimes people turn to like immunosuppressive drugs, which have other problems because it leaves you open for other types of infection. And it can also result in other conditions in the body, such as arthritis and things like that. So at Blue Horizon, we have both a topical skin cream, which uses conditioned media, which several of our patients with eczema have noticed a pretty dramatic improvement in the skin manifestations of the disease. And then we can also treat it with an IV infusion of the cord blood stem cells, which the cord blood stem cells seem to have an immune modulating effect. We don't know exactly how, but it seems that autoimmune diseases are particularly effectively treated with the cord blood stem cells. So this being an autoimmune disease, we would expect to have a significant improvement. So a typical regimen that I would recommend for an eczema patient would be to start out with our Alpha Blue cosmetic, which has the conditioned media. Conditioned media is what we grow the stem cells in. So when we culture the stem cells from the Wharton's jelly, they release cytokines and growth factors into this culture medium. And we used to just throw it away because you switch it every couple days so the cells have fresh growth medium. But then we thought, well, maybe there's something in there, maybe we should check it. And sure enough, there were 32 cytokines and growth factors in there. And we incorporated it into a cosmetic. It's manufactured in Germany. It's amazing for just wrinkles and dry skin and stuff like that, but it also turns out to be particularly effective for all kinds of skin conditions, especially stuff like eczema. So eczema seems to be particularly well treated with it, and so we've had a lot of patients that report improvements with just the cream. If that doesn't work, then you could add a cord blood IV infusion. That would be, I think, a much stronger treatment, but the two together would be ideal. And so that's, I think, the optimal prescription basically for eczema patient. Also, the cord blood would be much more able to help like a arthritic condition or something else related to the eczema that's not just on the skin surface. Okay, so the next question is, can human stem cells lead to a new heart attack treatment? Okay, well, that's an excellent question. So stem cells, we think, help the body regenerate damaged tissue and restore it with healthy tissue. Okay, so what happens in a heart attack? In a heart attack, someone has a blockage to a blood vessel that is supplying an area of the heart with blood delivering oxygen and nutrients. So it's not like a muscle in your arm or your leg or whatever. If your heart stops working, you're going to die shortly afterwards, right? So you can't go a long time. And the heart muscle is a special kind of muscle, but it's beating all the time, so it has a constant oxygen requirement. So if there's an interruption in the blood flow, then the oxygen deficit accelerates rapidly, okay? So you can't just go 10 minutes without blood flow to a particular part of the heart. And that's what a heart attack is. When the blood flow is interrupted, then it causes a lack of oxygen to that area of the heart muscle, and then that heart muscle ultimately can die if the blood flow isn't restored almost immediately. So one of my friends had a heart attack, my same friend that started the company, Eddie, that had the brain injury. And fortunately, he was able to get a cardiac catheterization almost immediately, and he ended up not having any muscle tissue in the heart die from the lack of oxygen. But the vast majority of people that sustain heart attacks are not so lucky. So they end up with areas of the heart muscle which have died. And when that area of the heart muscle dies, of course, assuming the patient survives the heart attack, then it scars down and it doesn't contract normally the way the rest of the heart does. So it's a small area, hopefully, or sometimes it can be larger. It depends on the size of the heart attack, how much muscle was involved. That area doesn't contract or contract as much. So then the rest of the heart muscle has to contract more to pump the same amount of blood. So basically the heart has to work harder to pump the same amount of blood. So that is what's called ejection fraction. So what percentage of the blood is ejected every time the heart contracts? So in a typical patient, it would maybe be 40 or 50 or 60%. So every time the heart contracts, it squeezes about half the blood out, and that would be a perfectly healthy heart that you would have no problem climbing steps or participating in sports or anything like that. But as people tend to lose ejection fraction and it starts to drop down below 20%, then or 30% even for some patients, those patients exhibit significant effects on their daily living. They can't go up a flight of steps. They're constantly fatigued. They can't even survive a surgery because they just don't have enough capacity to pump blood throughout their body and deliver oxygenated blood to the rest of the body. So the question is, can stem cells lead to a new heart attack treatment? Okay, so yes, they can. So in our experience, and also it appears to be the experience of some other stem cell researchers, that a stem cell treatment can actually help the heart regrow healthy tissue in those areas that were cut off from the blood and oxygen supply. So when that tissue died, instead of it just scarring down, or even if it has already scarred down, it appears that the stem cell treatment can actually cause improved contraction of the heart muscle. Perhaps some of the ischemic dead heart muscle is maybe brought a bit back to life and resumes some contraction, or it makes the rest of the heart muscle more effective and can contract better. But it is very typical to see an improvement in ejection fraction after even a single IV infusion of cord blood stem cells, for instance. So that would represent a new treatment for heart attack. So that's something I'm sure we'll hopefully eventually have an FDA study going on with. But I would definitely recommend an IV infusion of stem cells for anyone who's had a significant heart attack. Thanks very much. I really enjoyed answering everyone's questions today. So if you have any additional questions or comments, anything I could clarify more, just leave it in the comments section or send me an email. Thanks very much.